The air buzzed with the low hum of routine day-to-day operations when suddenly everything shifted. On June the 27th, 1976, Air France Flight 139, flying from Tel Aviv to Paris, vanished from radar screens, swallowed whole by a storm of unimaginable chaos. Armed terrorists linked to the Popular Front for the Liberation of Palestine had taken control mid-air. Unbeknownst to those on the ground, this plane, filled with over 100 Israeli citizens, was not headed toward a Middle Eastern haven, but veered 2,500 miles off course, making a jarring landing at Entebbe airport in Uganda. In the Israeli control room, heavy silence fell like a shroud. Gripped by confusion and dread, the stark realization hit hard. Their loved ones were hostages, trapped in a foreign land whose intentions were obscured. Would Israel, a nation forged through conflict, push the boundaries of diplomacy and military might to rescue these innocent lives? How far would they go to bring them home? Inside the old terminal building at Entebbe, the atmosphere was thick with tension, a palpable weight that hung in the humid air. Passengers huddled together in mixed groups, the sound of nervous whispers blending with the occasional creak of the building settling, creating an eerie symphony of uncertainty. Stripped of the usual hustle and bustle, the terminal had morphed into a makeshift prison, where hope felt like a distant memory. The hijackers, their faces obscured by masks, were calculating and cold. As they paced the slick floor, the fluorescent lights flickered above, casting ghostly shadows that danced across the walls. They began to sort the passengers with a chilling efficiency. "Israelis and Jews to the left," one of the terrorists barked, the brutality in his voice slicing through the thick air. The way they pointed, the sickening confidence in their commands, sent waves of fear rippling through the crowd. Families clung to one another, terrified but instinctively seeking the warmth of familiarity. Friends exchanged glances filled with unspoken fears as they were separated by this arbitrary line of fate. The tension sharpened when the Ugandan dictator Idi Amin made his entrance. With a grandiosity that struck a stark contrast to the somber atmosphere, he welcomed the hijackers as honored guests of Uganda. The irony didn't escape anyone present. This was not hospitality, but a brazen acknowledgement of their shared malice. The sharp scent of sweat and anxiety mingled with the stale air, amplifying the sense of dread that was now permeating every corner of the terminal. The disgraced leader, ever the performer, embraced the terrorists with theatrical flair, spouting empty greetings as if they were long-lost friends. For the hostages, the scene was surreal, stranded in a liminal space that had just crossed a threshold into the realm of nightmares. Outside, the world moved on, unaware of the chaos unfurling within the confines of that terminal. Life in Israel continued, seemingly unaffected, while the hostages felt utterly forgotten. Unable to see how their government was mobilizing in response, they were consumed by a mix of anxiety and a deep, gnawing helplessness. The reality of their situation seeped in. Were they to be left adrift in this nightmare, or would their country come rushing to their aid? As the hours ticked by, the old terminal spiraled further into a silence that felt deafening. Conversations dwindled to hushed murmurs, punctuated only by the soft shuffle of feet against the floor. Each heartache and glance shared was layered with an acute awareness of the lives pending outside, the lives that could be forever altered by the decisions being made in those grim moments. Guards yelled for silence, their controls slick as oil, adding to the agonizing tension in the air. Hope would soon become a rare currency in a place where every breath felt like a countdown, each heartbeat measuring the fragility of life. As the clock ticked down, a high-stakes game of international espionage unfolded, the likes of which would remain unspoken but echoed through the halls of power. The Mossad and CIA, often viewed as rivals, found common ground in a race against time, a race that would test boundaries, instincts, and resolve. In recent weeks, the tension in the air had become palpable. the Mossad had set into motion a detailed intelligence operation, rapidly mobilizing its agents across Africa. With Africa's vast and often turbulent landscape presenting challenges, Mossad operatives utilized a network of informants whose local knowledge became a lifeline. These contacts, embedded within the bustling communities near Entebbe, provided priceless insights and intelligence. Each whispered conversation could be the key to unlocking crucial information on the terrorists' whereabouts and the hostages' conditions. The complexity of this mission extended far beyond just gathering scattered bits of information. It was a puzzle that each operative needed to solve with precision. Satellite reconnaissance played a significant role, capturing high-resolution images of Entebbe Airport. The agents sifted through the data, identifying potential entry points and gathering the vital visuals that would later serve as a lifeline for the team on the ground. Simultaneously, the CIA quietly shared old blueprints of Entebbe Airport with their Israeli counterparts. These weren't just any blueprints, they were remnants from the construction done decades earlier by an American firm, a forgotten era that now held the key to strategic advantage. The Mossad agents meticulously pored over these designs, sketching out the layout of the terminal from memory, reconstructing its very essence. Imagine for a moment an operative seated at a dimly lit table cluttered with photographs, while outside the dark shadows of night loomed large. Her brow furrowed in concentration as she argued with a fellow agent over the dimensions of the airport's conveyor belt, memories flooding back from past missions and snippets of training. The stakes had never felt higher. There was an urgency that enveloped them like a shroud. It was no longer just about the rescue. It was an intricate game of chess played on the global stage, laden with secrecy and an acute sense of timing. Each adjustment they made, each piece of information gleaned, was like moving a chess piece in anticipation of the opponent's next move. Would the rescue team find the hostages before the terrorists decided to execute their deadly intentions? This complex network of espionage was not devoid of personal stakes. The operatives understood that lives were hanging by a fragile thread, and their every decision would resonate beyond the confines of the mission. They felt the weight of responsibility pressing down on their shoulders, igniting within them an unwavering determination, but also a flicker of fear of failure, and the implications it could carry. As the tension built, the remarkable synchronicity between Mossad and the CIA demonstrated an essential truth. In these complex operations, every decision made in the shadows could illuminate or darken the path forward. In a world that often demands separation between allies, this desperate circumstance forged an unexpected bond, embryonic in the chaos of impending conflict as the plan began to take shape, whispered plans for action cascading through the corridors of secrecy. The heart of Operation Thunderbolt lay in an audacious plan, one that would soon test the limits of Israel's military prowess and the bravery of its commandos. At the center of this gripping mission was Prime Minister Golda Meir, whose unyielding determination authorized what many would deem impossible. She was resolute. Fly commandos over 2,500 miles, land undetected, eliminate terrorists and rescue hostages, all within a matter of minutes. Leading this perilous mission was Lieutenant Colonel Yonatan Netanyahu, commander of Sayeret Matkal, an elite unit known for its stealth and precision. To those who knew him, Yonatan was a mix of intellect and grit, a commander's spirit fueled by an unwavering sense of duty. As he gathered his team in the command center, the atmosphere was heavy with urgency, yet charged with a palpable sense of purpose. The walls bore witness to meticulous planning, the kind that could stir quiet confidence in the stormiest of minds. The team began by meticulously constructing scale models of Entebbe Airport. Each inch of the model represented a critical piece of the puzzle, a tangible representation of what lay ahead. They scrutinized every detail, mapping out potential landing zones, enemy positions, and routes of escape. In another corner of the room, timing drills unfolded as commandos practiced their roles, each second ticking away like a tightly wound spring primed for release. The lessons were clear. Chaos would be unavoidable, but preparation was their strongest ally. Fuel calculations turned into an almost mathematical ballet of numbers. How far could they fly? How much weight could they carry for both personnel and equipment while maintaining their anonymity in the skies? The air was thick with tension and adrenaline as each variable was accounted for. These weren't just numbers, they represented lives, innocent hostages held captive in a foreign land. The weight of responsibility rested squarely on their shoulders. Intelligence was another cornerstone of this operation. Mossad worked furiously, leveraging their unparalleled networks and resources to gather intel on the terrorists holed up in the airport. Each piece of information could prove the difference between life and death. They needed precise details on the terrorists' structure, armament, and even mood. After all, understanding their psychology was as vital as knowing their physical presence. Meanwhile, the CIA provided crucial weather data. Jet streams, potential storms, and visibility became points of significant concern. The slightest miscalculation could throw the entire operation into jeopardy. For the commandos, this wasn't just a mission, it was a life-or-death race against time that would take every ounce of daring and disciplined mathematics they could muster. In those harrowing planning sessions, the team began to realize that they weren't merely drawing lines on a map, they were defining their fate and the fate of the hostages. Allies, adversaries, and even the very concepts of hope and fear would converge within those minutes on the tarmac at Entebbe. They set out not just to rescue hostages, but to send a powerful message to the world, one of determination, skill, and sheer willpower. It was a mission thus defined by the mix of audacity and unwavering analytical precision, a tribute to the unbreakable spirit of an elite fighting force. As the countdown to D-Day approached, with every piece of their plan falling into place, the stakes had never been higher. Amid all the calculations, there lay a simple truth. The commandos were not just soldiers, they were the last hope for those trapped in the grip of terror. The roar of the massive Israeli C-130 Hercules engines filled the cramped cabin, a relentless reminder of where they were and what lay ahead. Outside, the expanse of the Red Sea stretched below them, shimmering like a black sheet of glass under the gentle caress of the night sky. The pilots, seasoned professionals, executed their mission with the precision of a finely tuned machine, flying at dangerously low altitudes to skirt around enemy radar, keeping them hidden in the shadows of the night. Inside the aircraft, it was more than just the hum of the engines that filled the air. It was the palpable tension, a collective breath held in the chest of every man on board. The atmosphere was charged, like static before a storm. Each soldier sat silently, their thoughts racing faster than the craft hurtling through the darkness. Bonds forged in training and camaraderie filled the room, yet this was different. The stakes had never been higher, and they all understood the weight of the mission looming over them. There was no backup, no reinforcements, and no second chance if things went south. Conversations that might normally fill the cabin with life were muted as the pilots communicated in coded silence. Each flick of a switch, every slight adjustment of the controls was understood without words, a language of trust and precision. It was a ballet of coordination designed to evade detection, and with every passing minute the pressure built. Men exchanged short, knowing glances, each one aware that one mistake could spell disaster, not just for themselves, but for everyone involved in this perilous endeavor. They were each wrapped in their own mental storm, grappling with thoughts of family, friends, and lives they might never return to. Just moments ago, they had been in the comfort of their homes. Now they were plunging into the unknown. The heavy burden of responsibility settled like a weight on their shoulders. Their success depended on each member's unwavering resolve and skill, a delicate balance that, if disrupted, would lead to catastrophic consequences. As they cruised just above the murky surface of the water, every faint ripple seemed like a reminder of the lurking dangers. The night sky was empty, devoid of stars, almost as if the universe itself held its breath for them. But rather than being paralyzed by fear, something else ignited in their hearts, a fierce determination. They were dedicated to the mission, each man with his own reasons for fighting, his own motivations driving him forward. The C-130 glided through the darkness, and as they approached the destination, tension met a haunting stillness. A mission like no other lay ahead, one that would test their limits and bind them together as they ventured into hostile territory. They knew they were entering a crucible of fate, an invisible line where courage and despair danced dangerously close. As the clock struck midnight, the silence of the night was shattered by the low rumble of engines, the C-130 slicing through the darkness of the Ugandan sky. They descended, skimming the treetops before touching down with a quiet thud onto the desolate runway, shrouded in shadow. The faint glow of moonlight reflected off the metallic surfaces, creating an atmosphere of tension and anticipation. With the engines still humming, the rear ramp of the first plane dropped swiftly, and out rolled a sleek black Mercedes, flanked by a convoy of robust Land Rovers. Each vehicle's headlights illuminated the air in anticipation, casting long shadows across the tarmac. It was a strategic illusion, an intricate game of deception, a mimicry of Idi Amin's own motorcade. The hope was to confuse the guards stationed just inside the terminal, buying precious seconds needed for the commandos to make their move. Swiftly and silently, the elite soldiers sprang from the vehicles, their boots thundering against the concrete as they sprinted towards the terminal, every ounce of training and instinct kicking into high gear. The darkness enveloped them, cloaked them in purpose, and they quickly positioned themselves like shadows against the brick facade. Heartbeats thundered in their ears as they moved, each second stretching, taut like a drawn bowstring. And then it happened. A shot rang out, shattering the stillness, a dark harbinger of chaos. Bullets followed, ricocheting off walls, punctuating the air with terrifying clarity. The commotion erupted like a dam breaking, their target illuminated by flashes of gunfire, an unfolding tragedy of life and death. Commandos fought like lions, disciplined yet ferocious, moving with a unity forged through rigorous training. In those frantic moments, the commandos engaged the terrorists with precision, each well-aimed shot echoing with the urgency of their mission. The fire was relentless but coordinated, a torrent of tactics on full display. In mere minutes, the din of gunfire began to dissipate, fading into the night as the threat was neutralized. But amidst the triumph and the chaos, tragedy struck. Lieutenant Colonel Yonatan Netanyahu, a steadfast embodiment of leadership and bravery, felt a sudden sear of pain in his body. A sniper's bullet found its mark deep within his chest. Time slowed, and for a fleeting moment, shock rippled through him. He stumbled, yet he remained resolute, the weight of his responsibility heavier than the wound. With labored breath, he turned to his men, his voice a gravelly command amidst the surrounding chaos. "Move them out!" Those words echoed as a testament to his unwavering commitment, the embodiment of leadership even in his darkest hour. His fellow commandos sprang into action, each driven by an unyielding sense of loyalty to their fallen leader. As they swiftly gathered the shaken hostages, leading them out into the night, the reality of what had just transpired weighed heavily on their hearts. The silhouettes of the commandos against the backdrop of the now quiet terminal was a stark remembrance of bravery in the face of adversity. They were heroes, caught in a moment of profound sorrow and victory, marking the hours of their relentless pursuit for freedom. It became clear in those final moments that this wasn't just any mission. It embodied sacrifice, courage, and the stark reality of war. Lieutenant Colonel Netanyahu's last order hung in the air, a haunting reminder of the cost of liberation, etching itself into the steadfast resolve of those who would carry his legacy forward. As the clock counted down, the tension soared to unbearable heights. The dusty air of Entebbe International Airport was thick with anxiety. Inside the terminal, hostages who had endured days of fear and uncertainty now faced the moment they had longed for. The sounds of explosions echoed, ricocheting off concrete walls, mingling with the shouts and commands of Israeli soldiers. In this heart-stopping moment of evacuation, adrenaline surged through every being present. Armed to the teeth, the elite Israeli commandos moved with precision and purpose, each second critical. As Ugandan troops began to recognize the assault and opened fire with gunshots ringing through the night, the soldiers fought back fiercely, returning fire to create a protective shield for their fellow countrymen. Each bullet fired felt like a heartbeat, the frantic pulse of hope for those waiting nervously in the terminal. One by one, the hostages were ushered towards the waiting Hercules aircraft, their faces mixed with disbelief and elation. Is this really happening? They must have wondered. Mothers held tightly onto children, whispering soft reassurances while the chaos swirled around them. To have hope again amidst fear, it was surreal. As they rushed up the stairs of the aircraft, many would glance back, realizing that this could be their last sight of the terminal that had held them captive for so long. On the tarmac, a Herculean effort unfolded. With suppressive fire lighting up the darkened runway, Israeli soldiers took their positions. The crack of gunfire mingled with the roar of the engines, a symphony of survival echoing into the night. The first Hercules lined up on the runway, and a collective breath was held as it began to rumble forward. And then the unmistakable thrum of engines filled the air, drowning out the chaos. The ground shook as one aircraft accelerated down the runway, gaining speed. In that moment, time felt suspended. Every second stretched taut as lives hung in the balance between danger and escape. Hard-worn faces of the expectant hostages peered from the windows, watching a world they might leave behind. Would they make it? Would they truly be free? Within just 53 minutes of being on the ground, the operation took shape. The final Hercules roared to life, its engines cutting through the darkness, while the last remaining hostages surged aboard in a desperate but orderly rush. Faces illuminated by the brilliant runway lights were kissed by relief, the flickering hope blooming into tangible reality. High above, the stars seemed to shine brighter that night, perhaps in recognition of the triumph against overwhelming odds. As the planes accelerated, lifting into the sky, a profound silence fell over the airport, an echo of newfound freedom resonating in the hearts of those aboard. Nearly every hostage, every life in peril, whisked away from the brink of despair. It was a vivid reminder of courage amid chaos, a story of survival that would resonate long after the planes vanished into the vast African night. News of Operation Thunderbolt spread like wildfire, igniting a wave of emotions across the globe. In the aftermath of the daring rescue, the world reacted with a whirlwind of shock and admiration. Headlines across major newspapers declared it the most daring rescue in modern history, capturing the hearts and minds of millions. Readers were spellbound by the audacity of the mission that had unfolded in the heart of Entebbe, Uganda. The sheer scale of the operation showcased an unparalleled level of courage and precision, leaving people grappling with both disbelief and awe. Editorials lauded the remarkable coordination of Israeli forces. The narrative of ordinary people transformed into heroes resonated deeply. Reports emerged detailing the meticulous planning behind the rescue, showcasing the tenacity of both Mossad and Israeli commandos. Behind closed doors in Washington, the CIA extended an unsolicited thumbs up, admiring the audacity and execution of the Israeli operation. It was a rare moment of unity in the intelligence community, reflecting a simmering respect for the bravery displayed under fire. Yet, amid the celebration of the successful mission, a different story brewed in Uganda. As Israeli flags waved in jubilation across the globe, Idi Amin's wrath simmered dangerously. The Ugandan dictator's vow for revenge reverberated through the airwaves, casting a shadow over the jubilation. It was a stark reminder that every victory could sow seeds of discord. The world now held its breath, wondering what consequences lay ahead. In the wake of the operation, Israel mourned the loss of Yonatan Netanyahu, the mission's commander and an embodiment of the courage that had defined the moment. His sacrifice hung heavy over the nation as citizens grappled with profound grief. Striking photos of him, depicted as a man of resolve, adorned newspapers next to fervent tributes. People lit candles and gathered in hushed remembrance, their hearts heavy yet proud of the fearless spirit he had exemplified. Meanwhile, on the global stage, Operation Thunderbolt began morphing into legend. It was not just a tactical success, it was a powerful narrative defining an era of a nation. Stories of personal bravery and stories of families reunited painted a vivid picture of resilience. Each account traveled across borders, shaping perceptions and weaving a thread of connection among disparate peoples. The mission signified more than just a rescue. It stood as a testament to human resolve against tyranny, a tale that would inspire generations and shape diplomatic dialogues for years to come. In homes around the world, conversations ignited. Families discussed not just the pragmatic implications, but the human stories behind the headlines. Children learned about bravery, and adults deliberated on the ethics of rescue missions. The operation, its glowing legacy, mingling with sorrow, reminded everyone that the fight for freedom could be both brave and tragic, a duality that resonated deeply, leaving an indelible mark on the collective psyche of the world. The lessons learned from Entebbe reverberate through modern-day hostage rescue operations. It established a blueprint that insists on proactive measures and unwavering resolve. The motto, "Never again will Israelis be helpless," serves as a profound reminder that vulnerability must never prevail. With quiet determination, they flew through the night, crossed nations in silence, and left behind a message written in courage: the hostages came home.